Hello everyone. For today's module, we will be covering a work breakdown structure, which is a main tool or a process that we do in project planning in this class. These are the outlines that we will be going through for today's module, starting from a definition, what is a work breakdown structure or a WBS, and then we'll go through an example. And after that, we will take a look about what is a work package, which is the main block of a WBS. Then we'll highlight why it is important and go through the main uses of why we're developing a WBS. Then we'll summarize our module with something to keep in mind while developing the WBS structure. So starting with the definition, Project Management Institute, PMI, defined the WBS as the following. I'm going to read it quickly. A deliverable-oriented hierarchical decomposition of the work to be executed by the project team, the construction project team, to accomplish the project objectives and create the required deliverables. It actually sounds, or it's simpler than what it sounds. It describes usually the WBS, the project scope, in a hierarchy of work packages. So let's start that each work package in the higher level of the hierarchy is subdivided into more detailed work packages or sub-work packages in the lower levels of the hierarchy. So project managers refer to this WBS as the foundation of the project or the project planning, which will help, if you think about it, the project manager to think ahead of time while looking at the project in total. Let's start with an example of what is a work breakdown structure. As we said, it is a hierarchy levels of work packages. So let's say level 1, we have the first work package, which let's say we are building a house. The house then will be divided into the second hierarchy or the second level of the WBS into smaller packages. Let's say we want to focus more on design, foundation, let's say we have another work package in the house, which are the walls. Let's say we have floors, etc. Could be roofs, could be windows, and so on. And that would be then level 2. So if you want to think about it, on what would be level number 3, we look at each of these work packages and then we subdivide them into another level in the hierarchy. We call it, let's say, level 3 here. And let's take an example, just the walls here. So walls, we can divide it into, let's say, for simplicity, 4 main components. North wall, south wall, east wall, and west wall. And this is level number 3. For example, I want you to think while you're watching, what would be the level 3 of a work package of foundation, for example. A foundation could look like we have an excavation for the foundation, as well as putting the actual footings, or let's say for the simplicity here, if the house needs piling, so let's say we have piles in the foundation. So these could be 2 work packages in level 3 for the foundation work package in level number 2. As you can see, all these work packages then will go towards the higher level, which is the main deliverables of our project, which is the house. So as we noticed from the example of the WS of that small house, we talked about the work packages. Let's go through the details of what is a work package in more details. As we saw, one example of a work package, as we can see here, has to be well-defined scope of work and end up with a deliverable a product, like the east wall, like a foundation, like the excavation of the foundation. And each of the work packages has to be different from each other. Not all the walls in level 2, we divide them into 4 other components, like the north, east, west, and south walls. And each package also has to have main 2 characteristics, which related to the time as well as the budget. How much money we are identifying or how much budget we are putting into that specific work package to work with, to deliver it, and what's the start and the end date, the time period to complete that work package and to deliver it. Third or fourth, each package may vary in size but has to be measurable. It has to be controllable, because once we have a measurable and controllable work packages, that means that we know how to define or measure our performance for the entire project later. And that will highlight the last point here, which is it must be identifiable in a numerical accounting system, or what we call a coding system. And there is 2 types of coding system. There is a standard coding system and there is a project coding system, which will be covering later in other modules. But why is it important to be able to identify that specific work package so as we can refer to what's the actual budget used in the work package and the actual performance inside for more information about how we are performing the project and our monitoring, let's say, for the project. And this also, we will be covering it in this course through what we call an earned value method, the EVM. So why WBS is important? There are many uses for WBS and benefits. I would love to highlight here 4 main uses or benefits of a WBS, which are scope, cost, schedule, and responsibility. Let's start with the scope. WBS actually help define the scope of the construction project by identifying what are the list of construction activities or tasks that needed to complete the project and all the work packages that been identified. For example, when we talked about the north wall or any kind of the walls in level number 3, let's assume it's a concrete wall. The construction activities that associated with building or delivering the work package of the north wall would be something similar to assembling the steel or the rebar of the wall and putting all the frame or the forms around the rebar, pouring the concrete for the wall, and then waiting for the concrete to harden, and then take the forms out, and then we have the work package of the north wall delivered. It's measurable, it's deliverable. What I just mentioned of these 5 activities is called construction tasks or activities. These will be used to deliver the work package. Costs. The work packages of the WBS are measurable, as I mentioned, which will help construction managers assign specific costs to task or activity. This will also let managers distribute the project budget into the defined packages which link them to the construction tasks. This process is very important in cost control, as I mentioned about the earned value method, and actually schedule control to make sure that we are not exceeding the total project cost or not going over the schedule that we assigned for this specific project. And speaking of schedule, let's go to number 3 here. The WBS is also important when it comes to track the progress of a construction schedule. A manager, a project manager, or a construction manager can track a progress by defining the percent completion of each work package. Because remember, it's measurable, which when added up, it will help identify the progress of the entire project. Are we finished 30% of the project, 40%? How we compare it to the actual with the actual plans we have, and so on. Last but not least, it helps with responsibilities. A construction owner and a project manager can use a WBS to easily assign responsibilities for the work to be done. So in this case, if you remember from the example before, the CM or the construction manager can come and say, okay, we have this individual or this subcontractor working on only the foundation. And that individual who's responsible for the foundation then will assign the other work packages, let's say excavation and footings. So when you go into the footings to see who's responsible on building the footings, they will be responsible then to identify the construction activities or the activity lists in that specific work package to deliver it for later. Okay, so let's go next. As a summary, to sum it up, of the WBS, I want you to keep in mind when developing and working on structuring a WBS 5 main points. 1, the detail of a work package. You must be careful to not get too much details. This will lead to what we call a micromanagement, and that by itself will lead to slow down your progress. And you want to define between when I want to stop in my hierarchy level. As we did, I stopped by the north wall, and when I went to more details, I said, okay, this will be the responsibility for that individual who will be leading the north wall from identifying what are the construction tasks or activities. Second, difference between the work package and construction tasks. And this is very important as well. The WBS should contain a list of broken down deliverables which the customer will get when the project is complete. I'm delivering the house. I'm delivering, let's say, the foundation or the walls or the windows. It is not a list of a specific or the construction activities or tasks used to accomplish the deliverables. This is important. How the work is completed is or are the tasks or the activities identified, similar to the example I gave. And that can actually vary and change throughout the project. But the deliverables cannot change without a change request. So you do not want to list activities and tasks in the work breakdown structure. 3 is WBS is a visual breakdown and not a schedule. You have to define or make sure to distinguish between both. A WBS cannot be replaced with a schedule. It is not required when you create the WBS to be created in any type of order or sequence, like a schedule. You have to finish this, and then starting with this, and then the others. That we will cover in later modules. It is simply the WBS a visual breakdown of all the deliverables you have in the project. Number 4 is a change in the work breakdown structure means change in the project scope. And I want to emphasize again, it is a formal document. So the WBS, any changes require the use of the project change control process. And it changes to the WBS, change the deliverables, and therefore the scope of the entire project. The last point I want to keep in mind as a summary here, what's the difference between organizational hierarchy and the WBS? The organization hierarchy shows things like chain of command and lines of communication between the project team and the company, but the WBS is restricted simply to the project and shows only the deliverables and the scope of that project.